Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to today's tropical weather outlook for Tuesday. Almost forgot what day it was, but it is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. Hope you are all having a great day today. Let's get started by taking a look at what is going on in the tropics right now. And we start in the Pacific, where that is where all of the activity is happening. We have two areas of interest right now, and things continue to heat up here in the Pacific over the next few weeks, and as I'll show you throughout the video today, the Pacific will be the main area that we need to watch for in terms of tropical development over the coming weeks here, because meanwhile in the Atlantic Basin, nothing much is happening right now. No activity expected as of right now by the National Hurricane Center for the next 7 days, and it looks like things are going to stay that way. Here's a satellite shot of the Pacific right now, starting there since there is more activity right now. And you can see definitely an increase of cloud cover that we've had here over the past several days. Atmospheric conditions are becoming more favorable as the MJO will continue to progress into the Pacific over the next several weeks here. So things should continue to get more active. And in fact, we have one mass of clouds that looks particularly interesting right now, and it's roughly this area here, and this is actually Invest 94 East. The Pacific has yet another invest here, and the National Hurricane Center has actually marked it. Invest 94E right now, its chances of development in the next 48 hours at 50%, the next 7 days at 50%. So it's a coin flip in terms of whether or not this is going to develop, but there is more than likely going to be activity to come beyond this system. In fact, the National Hurricane Center has another area of interest, also at a moderate, medium chance of development right now, the old orange shading here. So definitely a lot of things to look forward to in the Pacific side of development, but in the Atlantic, obviously. In the meanwhile, taking a satellite picture of how things are looking like right now, things look very barren and very quiet. Not much to note in the Atlantic Basin right now. A few tropical waves here and there moving across the Atlantic. Clearly one here in the eastern Atlantic probably came off the coast of Africa about 2 or 3 days ago. And then there's one approaching the islands, especially the southern islands here, Trinidad and Tobago, probably dealing with a beating in terms of showers and thunderstorm activity right now, but obviously that is the typical song and dance that you guys deal with whenever you have these tropical waves moving through. Nice little spin feature here just to the southeast of Bermuda, probably moving to the northwest, although that's definitely not going to develop into anything right now. And then we have a front here that is coming off the coast of the United States, and also some shower and thunderstorm activity over Florida. But in terms of anything developing anywhere throughout the deep tropics, the Gulf, the Caribbean, and the subtropics as well, looks like nothing is taking shape in the Atlantic as of yet. And taking a look at the Saharan air, probably one of the biggest reasons as to why things are quiet right now, and typical of the early season, the Saharan air is keeping a nice cap on things in the Atlantic right now, especially in the eastern Atlantic, and boy do we have an especially large and significant plume coming off the coast of Africa right now and ejecting itself into the eastern MDR, and you could actually kind of see it on the satellite frame here for miles, especially in the eastern Atlantic. There's virtually no convective activity at all. So for the meanwhile that we're going to continue to see the Saharan air kind of plague itself over the MDR in the Atlantic here, we are going to have nothing, 0x of development, at least in the eastern Atlantic. The subtropics and the Gulf, especially this time of year, is always open for activity at any random moment if conditions are favorable enough, but looks like nothing of interest is happening there right now. So where is everything happening globally in terms of tropical cyclone activity? Let's take a little bit of an adventure around the world, and I have a feeling we're probably going to be doing quite a bit of that this season now that I think about it. But in terms of tropical cyclone activity that is happening around the world right now, obviously in the eastern Pacific right now, we have Invest 94E. We will obviously watch and see whether or not this develops, although I should tell you right now, more than likely it's going to move out to sea and not really be of much concern. In the Western Pacific, though, we have Typhoon Makala, which became a Category 4 storm at its peak, I believe, early yesterday. And now it is weakening. It is dealing with a wall of shear, and it is getting sheared to death right now. So it is probably well in its weakening phase and probably going to become a non-tropical system here in the next few days. It's well past its peak, but it's still a typhoon right now. And then we have Tropical Depression Higos, which is yet another storm here that we're going to have to watch in the Pacific. So it looks like all of the activity right now is centered in the Pacific Basin. And this makes sense because this year is an El Nino, and generally atmospheric conditions when it comes to rising motion and westerly winds, lower level westerlies, which allow for more vorticity in the atmosphere, generally gets more focused in the Pacific, and as a result, we see sinking air and lots of wind shear in the Atlantic, and we are seeing that pattern play out quite significantly right now, or quite jarringly. And taking a look at the velocity potential anomalies over the last 30 days here, you could definitely see atmospherically, we're seeing a lot of rising motion set up in the Pacific right now, pretty much almost entirely basin wide, and we already have a pretty pronounced rising cell of the MJO setting up in the Pacific, so definitely indicative of an El Nino in the making, and an El Nino that is developing. And as this El Nino that we have in the Pacific continues to strengthen, this rising cell here of the MJO and negative velocity potential anomalies is only going to continue to grow. And as the weeks and months go by, things are probably only going to get more active here in terms of tropical activity in the Pacific. And speaking of the MJO right now, over just the next few weeks here, I've been talking about this for the last few days, but it looks like the MJO itself is going to move into the Pacific phases in the next coming weeks as we close out this month and start next month. Taking a look at the long-range GEFS here going out till July 7th, the MJO moves into phases 6 and 7, which especially favors the Western Pacific. So the activity that we see in the Pacific right now is probably just the beginning, and things are really going to ramp up here, and we are probably going to see more activity and probably more typhoons, maybe even some more strong ones as well. And then eventually here, the Pacific should get started and really start pumping out storms as well. Let's take a look at how things are looking like in the Atlantic first, though, before we get to the Pacific. And obviously, because we don't have any MJO forcing right now, actually, interestingly enough, there is some rising air over Western Africa and in the Eastern Atlantic, which I guess explains why we've been having some pretty aggressive tropical waves which have been moving off the coast of Africa recently, and definitely explains why the African wave train has been so active this year so far. And that's definitely something that will be interesting, and we will see whether or not that persists this season. But in terms of whether or not that's going to lead to development here in the Atlantic over the next week, more than likely not. The GFS isn't really seeing anything right now. And again, typically, the Eastern Atlantic here, more than likely, it's going to be shut down. All the tropical waves that move off the coast of Africa here are probably going to get choked off by whatever dry air or Saharan air makes its way off the continent and ejects itself into the Eastern Atlantic. And looks like the model is not really picking up on any development, in the Southeast or in the Gulf right now. So things are looking nice and quiet in the Atlantic Basin. And then in the Eastern Pacific, it's a different story. You do see that there are some things that try to develop here. We have Invest 94E. We'll see if that develops. The GFS kind of closes it off a little bit. It's probably going to be a weak storm that'll briefly move on out here if it does develop. But, going longer range, you do see the GFS definitely starts to do more things here, especially once we get towards the next 7 to 10 days. So probably once we end this month and move into July, we will really see things become more active here in the Pacific. And then taking a look at the ensembles, and with the ensembles, I'd say we could take this all the way out to the next 2 weeks here. And Yeah, definitely. Once we get into early July, first of all, we have some sort of signal here with something that tries to develop, and I do believe that's associated with one of the current areas of interest from the National Hurricane Center right now. And then I guess some ensembles here develop it, some don't, and then that moves on out, and then we have more signals behind it within the next 1 or 2 weeks here that then try to start get going here in the Pacific. A little bit interesting, though, that the European ensembles at least are not as aggressive on development. And even looking at the GFS2, I mean, there are pockets of energy here that do try to consolidate. And there are, I mean, around 8 to 9 to 10 days out, something, I guess, does try to develop here. Maybe a wave that moves from South America, and maybe there should be amplification of the atmosphere from the MJO, and I think we probably will get something here like the GFS shows, but kind of a little bit, curious as to the fact that I feel like the Eastern Pacific should honestly be a little bit more active than it is right now. I mean, the models are hinting at stuff, but I don't know. I feel like over the last few weeks, the models kind of have been hinting at things here in the Eastern Pacific, yet things have not fully come to fruition. But they are definitely getting more active in the Western Pacific, so I guess the Eastern Pacific is probably just a few weeks away. But we will see whether or not we actually do get activity like the models are showing in the long range. But it is definitely a little bit curious that the models have kind of been stuck in the long range for activity in the Eastern Pacific, yet when it gets closer in time, it doesn't really pan out. But of course, we will see. But regardless, right now for the next few weeks in the Atlantic, on the other hand, things look like it'll be smooth sail, and we won't have to watch for anything just yet. But obviously, of course, we know just how quickly that can change on a dime. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's tropical weather outlook, though, since there's not much else going on in the tropics for now. Obviously, we'll be continuing to do these videos on a daily or sometimes semi-daily basis. I took a day off yesterday, and if things don't really look like they're going to get too interesting in the next 2 days, maybe I might take another day off or so, depending on how things look like. But more than likely, we'll continue to do these tropical weather outlooks on an almost daily basis. So if you are interested in that and you like what you saw today, as I always say every single video, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and make sure to turn on the notification bell so you can get videos the moment I upload them. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and I will talk to you guys again tomorrow.